The First Omen has no right to be this good. It has no right. Like most prequel viewings I go to, I went in with fairly low expectations. I think most people do. Like if you see that some like Jaws prequel is coming out called Baby Shark: The Spawning or some shit. Like for me, I prepare myself to jump on that cinematic grenade so other people don't have to. I do that for you. That is what this channel does. I'm not saying the term hero should be thrown around, but like, if the shoe fits. But this movie is fucking great. Like, if you watched my Immaculate review, you know that I was disappointed because it only went hard for like the last 10 minutes, and I wanted it to go crazy for longer of the runtime, not just have a payoff at the end. And it seems like the director of this one, Akasha Stevenson, said, "Oh, what's that? Here you go, you sick little fuck." Because she nailed it. She nailed it. God damn, she nailed it. Also, sidebar, I am 10 subs away from 1,000, so help me out, guys, if you haven't already. The First Omen goes into like proper mental territory, and it keeps that up for most of the film. I saw this at a late night screening last night, and there were only 3 of us in the cinema, which it's a bit of a shame because like this is a horror movie event for sure. This might be the best straight up like no art house bullshit horror film that's I've seen this year. When I was leaving the cinema, I walked past the other 2 moviegoers, a mother and son, based on the age gap. And I know you'll say, well, Jake, you can't just assume that they are a mother and son, alright? Women are allowed to date younger men too. And I get it, you're right. But I know they were a mother and son because he had 2 working arms. You're confused. I'll explain. If they were dating, there would be no way in the world he wouldn't have his arm in a sling. And that's because of all the fucking high fives he'd be getting, because this lady was cool as shit. Not only did she hold the door open for me, we love a chivalry, reverse, but the first thing she said to me was, "This movie was amazing." Now, currently, if you haven't seen the film, that might not mean much to you, but the gore and body horror in this film is full on, like full scale Cronenberg-esque. And this lady is a couple of generations older than me. She was all about it. She thought it was awesome. And then she started talking about how they had recently watched the 2006 Omen movie in preparation, but it wasn't as good as the original. So now she has to show him the 1976 Omen because it's been months. Yes, months. She said months, not years since she watched it last, and it's one of her favorites. And she wants to go back and check to see if there's continuity errors because she wasn't sure like the family tree lined up like it should have. And just 12 out of 10. No notes. Super cool horror lady. I doubt she's watching, but shout out to her. Good experience all around. But if it's been a while since you've walked out of a horror movie screening going, "Wow, that was good," go see this. It's been a while since I've been impressed by like a straight down the line horror. Like this is just a straight down the line horror. It's not like highbrow art house. It is just straight down the line. Maybe Talk to Me was the last time I was super impressed at the cinemas by a straight up horror film. And I'm not saying go in expecting Talk to Me. Like I'm not promising you a 10 out of 10 masterpiece. I am promising you a fun, solid as hell, disturbing as fuck, fluid-soaked ride through, a cathedral in Rome. This movie gave me energy. Like, I have been in a good mood all day after seeing this movie last night because it was just so worth the time and money, and I think it will be for horror fans. I mean, between this, Immaculate, and Hoysera, I am also so glad that my kid was born last year. If I had seen those films beforehand, the people in the delivery room would have been me, in full bishop regalia, my partner, the doctors and nurses, and I would have had to hire the world's greatest exorcist. Yes, that's right. I would have had to call up the big dog himself, Russell Crowe, to attend. Fucking Vesper and all, we would have made room. Just watching over us to keep us safe through the power of prayer. Maybe, cracking some jokes, playing with some rosary beads, wearing a Rabbitohs jersey the way God intended. That would have stopped Satan from being born for sure. But luckily, he was born before I saw all these because pregnancy horror is having a moment. Spooky kids, spooky pregnancies, they're back, and so far they're fucking awesome. Welcome to Spooky Nights. Now, The First Omen is the prequel to the 1976 classic The Omen, probably the first creepy child movie ever, with the pasty little antichrist Damien, who is now like a horror icon. So much so that when I was growing up, if there was a badly behaved child in public, my mum would sort of like look at me and go, Damien, that you? So, this movie has big shoes to fill. The film takes place in 1971 in Rome, where a young American nun named Margaret, played by Nell Free, has arrived hoping to take her vows and become a nun after having like a tough upbringing and, finding the church. Now, does that sound familiar? Yes, it does. It's because it's the exact setup to Immaculate, which came out 2 weeks ago. We are living in the midst of a creepy nun renaissance, and honestly, I'm about it, especially if they're going to be decent. Like, I'm stoked. But I don't think there has been two similar films that have come out in such a short space of time since maybe 2018, when A Quiet Place and The Silence came out. If you haven't heard of The Silence, there's a reason for that. That tells you all you need to know about that film. But it's just interesting. And by the way, that phenomenon in the business is called twin films. So, I don't just swear at you. I teach too. Knowledge is power, guys. As Margaret starts to get to know the young orphan girls who are looked after by her convent, she realizes that one of them, Carlita, is treated like a pariah by the other girls and the nuns, and she's determined to find out why. As Margaret explores further, she is subjected to shocking discoveries, religious power plays, and some devilishly disturbing events. Check out the trailer.
There's this girl at the orphanage. I think that she really needs someone to look out for her.
Carlita suffers from a touch of madness.
You must be very careful, Margaret. Bad things will start to happen around her. Evil things.
It's all for you. No, don't.
I truly, really, sincerely loved this movie. It's fucked. It's fucked, this movie. If you don't like body horror or gore, don't go in. There is lots of blood, there's lots of surgery, there's some hectic full frontal nudity. Apart from being more hardcore than Immaculate, something that really stood out to me in this film is that the characters are really quite well established, given the runtime. Like Immaculate, Margaret is in a new place where she doesn't speak the language and she makes friends with like a cooler younger nun. But the writers, Tim Smith, Akasha Stevenson, and Keith Thomas, actually show that friendship getting built using scenes, not montages. So it feels more believable. Like, you get the character dynamics a bit more. There's also some subtlety in establishing the horror. It's not just like, oh look, everyone is bad. Look at them doing weird stuff, Like, it wants you to question a little bit. Should the nuns be treating Carlita differently? Are they actually bad? Are they just scared? Is Carlita the actual Antichrist? How did she get here? She's doing some weird shit. Like, maybe she is just fucked. It is that nuance that helps the film a lot. The acting is really, really good. Nell Free, dope movie star name, by the way. Nell Free, who apparently she's also like a huge horror fan, which is awesome. But she is believable as a woman with a history of mental illness who's trying to find answers in the church. Like, she bonds to this kid because she's like, I've been you. I think you're just mentally unwell. I'm going to help you. For better or worse. Ralph Ineson, who is the dad from The Witch, is phenomenal as like this excommunicated priest who is also investigating the convent. And he plays like desperate and scared better than most. And his accent is just, it's one of my favorites ever. Like, honestly, I would pay big bucks to listen to him read the dictionary. Ralph, if you're watching, we should chat. I have a proposition for you. Bill Nye, not the science guy, the actor, is also great. And we even have Charles Dance make an appearance in a scene that is wonderfully homaging the original. By the way, Charles Dance and Nell both in Game of Thrones, so there are Baratheons and Lannisters in this. That's kind of cool. Something this movie nails perfectly is pacing. I wasn't bored for a second of this movie. No character feels like a dead end. No scene feels unnecessary. Even though at the start you're like, what the fuck? Why show him? What's his deal? They have a purpose. All the brutality and the gore also has a purpose. There's no just shock value for the sake of shock value. You're like, okay, I get what's happening here. It pays off well. It does a good job at making the plot line up with the original. And even though it's not perfect, it's good enough. Like, I don't need a corkboard and red string and all that shit. Just don't fuck with too much of the established lore. And they know that. They're obviously fans of The Omen because they know that, and they do it really well. The investigation portion of the film is fucking great. There's a lot of like dossiers and filing cabinets to flick through, and as soon as I saw that, I was like, don't mind if I do. Like, I love that shit, man, and it's awesome in this. I thought they nailed the 70s vibe perfectly without making it too on the nose. Like, some movies try to nail like a retro time period by making things like the filmography grainier and all. They don't do that. They just go with the vibe. The title cards are crackingly old school. So, like, they do a good job. The score is wonderful, maybe as good as the original, which is fucking wild because it's so hard to keep up with Jerry Goldsmith's original soundtrack. But they got Mark Coven, who did the Witch score, to come in and do this one. And he uses these just evil little chord arrangements that are wonderfully unsettling. Like, they are wonderfully unsettling. The costumes are good. They all feel authentic. The cinematography is beautiful. Once again, it's in Rome, so like a little bit unfair. Everything's beautiful, but it's really good. Is it perfect? No. It's not really scary. It's more disturbing. And there are some slight plot holes that raise a few questions about Damien's genealogy and the groundwork that would have had to go into getting him Earthside. But this movie adds to the franchise, and I dare say elevates it. And that's what you want from a prequel. Like, there are very few prequels that do that. Annabelle Creation is one. It's one of the few I can think of. Like, there are very few prequels that actually lift the franchise up. If you are a horror fan and you only have time or money to see one recent spooky nun film, skip the Nun series. I love Bonnie, but like, they're just not that good. She's great in The Conjuring. And skip Immaculate. Unless you're a Sidney Sweeney fan, I get it. If you're a Sidney Sweeney fan, girl, go in. But give this a spin. This beats the shit out of both of them to me. I fucking love this film. I recommend watching this if you love nunsploitation films. Probably goes without saying. If you love when a movie just goes for it, like when a horror movie just goes, I'm all in, we're investing, we're going. If movies that try to gross you out or creep you out are your favorite types of films, this is doing that. This is trying to do that, and it does it pretty well. If you've been waiting for like a horror cinema event to go to this year, here it is. It took us till April. I mean, that being said, Late Night with the Devil is coming out soon. So, but currently, this is the one. If you love the original Omen, probably goes without saying. This is a great addition. It doesn't replace it. It adds to it. I do not recommend watching this if you hate body or pregnancy horror. This is filled with it. If you want to be terrified, I'm talking BPMs of 90 plus, don't go into this one. This is not that scary. If religious harm, mental health, sexual assault, if any of them are triggers for you, this one goes hard in the paint. So either steel yourself or don't go in. That's up to you. I'll let you make that call, but heavy theming in this. As always, thanks for watching, especially if you watched all the way through. Views and watch time are the most important metric on YouTube. So you've done me a fucking solid. I love you for it. Thank you. If you like this movie and you're looking for more religious horror, maybe something a bit funner, The Pope's Exorcist. The Pope's Exorcist, like, once again, I don't even know if it's a good film. It's the most fun I had watching a movie last year, though. I just love it. God, I love it. If you want to go the other way, if you're like, nah, I don't really want a good time, I want something darker and gorier with more fanaticism, check out Apostle on Netflix. It's not particularly Catholic, but it is religious. It's a highly underrated cult horror, and it's got a fucking cracking twist. So yeah, it's awesome. Hopefully I'll see you next week for another review. I'll be doing Late Night with the Devil. I'm very excited. I've been waiting so goddamn long for that film to come out. If you do see this movie, if you do see The First Omen, let me know what you think. Was it better than the original? Does it stack up? Does it add to it? Is it the best horror prequel ever made? It might be. Fuck, it might be. I'm trying to think of them now. I mean, Annabelle Creation was really good. This is pretty fucking good. Tell me what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching. Peace.